What's so funny? Lessons from Canada's Leacock Medal for Humour Writing. Lesson number 8. The Limits of Self-Deprecating Humour. This is a review of the 1954 Leacock Medal winner, Pardon My Parka by Joan Walker. I laugh when I look at my copy of this book on my shelf because of the irony. I didn't find the book particularly funny, and probably liked it the least of the award-winning bunch, yet I paid more for it than any other book. I had a hard time finding a copy, eventually ordered one from a rare book dealer, and paid around 200 times its original price. Fortunately, that price was 35 cents. Still, some people might see the book's rarity as a good thing. Walker wrote it, however, to be a fun account of her experience as a British war bride, struggling to get established in Val-d'Or, Quebec, just 10 years after the town's gold mine opened. Most of the book tells her story in a cheery and positive way. Anyone can be a pioneer, she says. All you have to do is fall in love with a Canadian major during a London blackout. But more than a few times, Walker resorts to racial and cultural stereotypes that go beyond what you can excuse as just a feature of another era, or as an awkward attempt at humor. These comments stick in my mind and taint the whole book, despite her breezy, self-deprecating style. Walker admits up front to being a privileged Brit, who can barely tell a cow from a sheep and couldn't care less. Back in London, her family paid others to do the housekeeping, and Walker says that even when she worked as a Fleet Street journalist, she put a high priority on socializing and sleeping in. Parties, cigarettes and alcohol fill her stories, and she shops and soaks in the tub whenever it's possible. These pursuits, of course, collide with northern life, particularly when she treks off on camping trips to battle black flies and moose. Reflecting her interest in comfort, she always brings her story back to the multi-year quest to build, furnish, and occupy her bungalow. Walker wrangles with contractors, fights to get municipal services hooked up, and slogs through the mud. She and her husband rely on an outhouse in winter, tote water uphill, and readjust financing every step of the way. The book often reads like a yarn written to impress a writer's friends back in Blighty, and its greatest sales success came initially in Britain. But Walker generally treats the physical environment kindly, rarely commenting on the snow and cold, and she never directs her aggravation at the Canadian soldier who brought her to the wilds of northern Quebec. Even when relating extreme disappointment and a desire to strangle someone, she won't label the villain as anything more than a dirty so-and-so, such and such, or son of a gun. So for this reason, her cultural shots and race references seem to leap off the page. Walker belittles the notoriously prolific Canadians, the French Canadians, and she summons her Swiss finishing school background to condemn the locals for their hideous language skills and flawed manners. In one early passage, she mourns the treatment Chopin's Prelude in C received from a pianist passing through Val-d'Or. She did not know him at the time, and describes him only as a colored man, adding later that his name was Oscar Peterson. At other points, she complains of being treated like a Chinese coolie. Whether you could excuse those remarks as a symptom of another age or not, it's hard to skip over Joan Walker's portrait of native children in the closing chapters. They are dirty and smelly, she says. Their noses always run. They are naturally cruel to animals. Mercifully, Walker doesn't slip all the way back to the Victorian era, when Canadians evidently found their laughs not only in the plight of convicts and the underprivileged, but also in anyone with a physical disability. Still, her comments definitely give off a whiff of the dirty and smelly side of Victorian gentility, and they remind me of the limits of self-deprecating humor as a mollifying context. My humor guru, commenting on my own writing, noted that self-deprecation gets tiresome quickly, draws attention to the author, and interferes with the story. Walker's book shows that self-deprecation also grates and seems insincere when juxtaposed with slights at others. Despite all of this, I think you might want to read this book for a snapshot of the life of a war bride. Close to 50,000 of them came to Canada after World War II. They undoubtedly had a bit of a shock, felt the separation from familiar surroundings, and missed family and friends, but did it for love. Joan Walker's book captures that part of the Canadian experience, and I believe she tries to be honest in this book, and tries to be open about her personal take as someone of privilege. I just wish she had had an underprivileged editor at times. Now here's a writing exercise based on My Parka. After an exaggerated bit of self-deprecation, set out your own solution for the tensions in the Middle East, based on stereotypes.